Welcome to Sister Friends. I'm Angie Gray here with my amazing friend,
ReShonda Young.
and together we're diving into what's at the heart of it all, relationships.
From finances and family to the ups and downs of life partnerships, and even those relationships we have with ourselves, we're here to talk about the real stuff.
We're not shying away from the hard conversations, we're leaning into them because we believe that when we start talking, we start understanding.
And when we understand, we grow in empathy, compassion, and connection.
So grab a seat,
Grab a friend, and let's
get into it. Hello, everybody. We are so excited to have our fourth guest on our podcast. But let's introduce ourselves first of all. I'm Angie Gray.
And I'm ReShonda Young.
And we are
Sister Friends.
And this is always really weird because when we do it on Zoom, we're hopefully going to get better, but there's a little overlap, so forgive us there. But I'm super excited to introduce, and I just got done introducing this lovely guest to ReShonda. This is the first time they're actually meeting, and I know you're excited, Shonda, to meet. To meet Esther Yunkin. A little bit of background before I read actually her beautiful bio, because I don't want to mess it up. I think introducing one another is really important. You've worked really hard at developing the gifts and the talents and the knowledge that you have to share. And I want everybody to know that. So I'm actually just going to read it. But I wanted to share a little bit about our background. Esther and I have known each other. I don't know. How long has it been, Esther?
Oh my goodness. I don't know, 15, 20 years?
Nuh-uh, come on.
We met way back in USANA days.
Come on. It hasn't been that long.
Yeah, I think
Because
you were
that's
on
funny.
Dr. Oz. I think that's around the time when I first met you. So however long that's been.
Well, that actually hasn't been that long ago. That's been, I want to say 2019. So that has been 20 years ago. But anyway,
Okay.
we know each other from a company that we both were partnered with called USANA Health Sciences. Y'all have heard me talk about that before. And we have evolved into these new beings that are doing crazy fun things, and we think are valuable things. And Esther, certainly what you're doing is been remarkable, really, like to see, your involvement. So stop me there. I'm gonna read your bio. And here it is. Hold the phone here. Okay. Esther Yunkin, Esther is a registered nurse, which I think is very important to say. She's a registered nurse with 17 years in emergency care. That's a lot. Became frustrated with the short-term Band-Aid approach of Western medicine. Now she helps women with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Is that how I say that?
Yep.
I've never even said that word before. With Hashimoto's thyroiditis, find hope, healing, and energy without becoming overwhelmed. As host of the Health with Hashimoto's podcast, so good, and creator of the Holistic Hashimoto's program, she offers simple, sustainable solutions for lasting health. Esther lives in Minnesota, our little sister state, with her husband and 4 amazing sons. Okay, would you like to add anything to that?
I don't know what to add.
Okay. All right.
It's exactly as you said.
Okay, great. And one more thing about when we met, I just think it is truly remarkable when you started doing podcasting about this. I mean, your journey to figuring this all out for your own health, but then starting to podcast, like how old is your podcast? 2 or 3 years?
Probably 2.5.
Okay. And you're such a, I don't know, this doesn't surprise me because I think as a nurse, you're already just, very innovative, but you just like did this podcast thing. And I remember you telling me about it. It was so inspiring and it was so big. We were nowhere near ready to do it, but so cool. So let's get started, and please tell us about your journey, how you got to be here, Hashimoto's, first of all.
Yeah. So I guess it starts when I was a little girl. I knew I was going to be a nurse. I wanted to help people. And so I went straight from straight from high school to college. I was one of the lucky ones who I knew what I was going to do. And I went from college straight into my first job in nursing. I actually went up to Alaska as a grad nurse and worked up there for a summer missionary program. And it was so much fun. I did everything. Uh, in that tiny little clinic, we covered the area, or an area the size of Ohio, with one nurse and then one grad nurse. So we did
Wow.
everything: dispatch ambulances, take x-rays, run the ER, run the clinic. And then I came back to Minnesota and got, some actual experience before going back up there and working for 3 years, which is where I met my husband. But after an experience like that, I was like, I can't go back to med surge. So when I left Alaska, I stayed in the ER and I loved it until I didn't. And it's just that broken Western medicine, like constantly putting short-term band-aids on people, knowing that you're going to see the same problems in the same shift, and you're going to see the same people in over the course of months or years. Like, we get to know our patients even in the ER, which is crazy. You're not supposed to have repeats. And so then I went back to school for holistic education. And throughout this whole process, nursing school, holistic education school, the thyroid stuff always confused me, always, because when one thing goes up, another thing goes down. When that goes down, it affects something else. And I was like, this is just too much, didn't fit in my brain. And so then when my chiropractor is like, Esther, I think it's your thyroid. I think we need to run some labs. And I remember praying the day before I knew I was supposed to get my labs back. I'm like, God, this cannot be my thyroid, because I don't understand thyroid. It cannot be my thyroid. God, it cannot be. And of course it came back, and it was my thyroid. It was Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition attacking your thyroid. And I was devastated. Like, God, how can this be? And thankfully, I handed all the stuff to my husband, and I said, here's a resource. Please listen to the podcast, read this blog, look at my labs, and tell me what's going on. He's also a nurse, and he was able to get me through like that first day of overwhelm and fear. And then I was able to jump in and make sense of it. And it was probably the next day or two where I heard God say, Esther, you went through 4 years of college, and then you went back to school for 2 more years for holistic health. You educated people for 17 years in the ER, and you still don't understand thyroid. What do you think my normal child is experiencing?
Mm.
You need to share. And that's where the podcast came from. It was that message from God of, you're confused with all your education. Now use your gifts and your skills and your abilities to help other people. That's a really long answer to your short question.
No, I'm already crying.
That is a great answer to that
And
question. Yeah.
yes, and what a beautiful story. Yeah. And of course, like in so many different ways in life, that is how it is. Oh, the one thing I don't get or whatever, oh, I'm going to do that. Okay. Um, I wanted to ask you about, well, first of all, that piece that you just said about, God speaking to you and you felt it was really clear asking you that question. If you, of all people, that has had 17 years in the ER, all this education and experience in healthcare and medicine and all the things, if you're confused about it, what about the normal Joe that is experiencing this? And that was really the shift for you?
It was, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was scared, if I was unsure, if I was trying to figure it out, like my heart kind of just broke for all my co-patients. Like,
Mhm.
now I was in that boat. And I knew from my time in the ER that Synthroid or levothyroxine is one of the most common medications prescribed. And and I also knew that as I was typing it into somebody's medical history, I would type Synthroid and I'd ask them, do you have any medical problems? No. Do you take any medicines? Synthroid. So do you have any medical problems? No. Well, why do you take the Synthroid? Oh yeah, my doctor said I have something with my thyroid. But that's all people knew. They
Yes.
knew that my doctor said, take this for the rest of your life. That's no way to live.
Mm.
Like, we don't just need to take a medication for the rest of our lives. We need to own our health and take steps to heal and to let our bodies do what God designed them to do, which is not illness.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, love that.
I have a question. I'm sorry, ReShonda, we're getting used to this three people thing. Do you have something you want to say?
Well, yeah, I did. I wanted to know at the point that you were diagnosed, did you already have all four of your boys? And how did that affect like the family? And
all of that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I did. I don't know when I developed Hashimoto's.
All right, I want to just back it
Oh,
up.
go ahead.
Great question, and I'm probably being super rude, but I want that is I'm getting to that question, and I'm so glad you brought it up. But I want to make sure to our audience, explain a little bit more. What is Hashimoto's? We're already sort of saying sort of big words to even for me to, I want to make sure everybody understands what it is. What are some of the symptoms? You said it's an autoimmune disease. What does that mean? Does also on that note, if you have an autoimmune disorder, disease, whatever, does that predispose you to Hashimoto's? Also, is that a fair thing to put together? Does that make sense to
Yeah.
put together? Okay.
Yep. So Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease, like you said, and it affects the thyroid. So all autoimmune diseases are a disease of your immune system. Your immune system has gone haywire and it is attacking your body. Where it is attacking, that's where we get the different names. So lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, type 1 diabetes, there's so many different autoimmune problems, and they're just based on what your immune system is attacking. Hashimoto's is the disease where your immune system is attacking your thyroid. So your thyroid is a butterfly shaped gland on the front of your neck, like at the base of your throat. And it's kind of like it provides the ignition key for every single cell in your body. So your thyroid produces a hormone called T4, and then that is converted by your body into T3. T3 is the key. And so it goes into like the mitochondria and it turns it on. Of course, you can have a car and it can have all four wheels, it can have a tank of gas, it can have everything working well. But if you don't turn the key, your car is not running. It's the same with your cells. Your cell can be all parts there, but if you don't have the key, it's not running. So your thyroid hormone turns on your cells. And of course, you have trillions of cells in your body. And so you might feel your Hashimoto's symptoms differently than somebody else based on which cells in your body are not like turning on. For a lot of people, they feel it in their metabolism super low. Um, Everything is going to be, not as on as it should be. So hair growth, maybe your hair is falling out, maybe it's thinning. That could be Hashimoto's or hypothyroid. It could be you're always feeling cold. A really common symptom is depression. It is the standard of care that if somebody has depression, they should be tested for their thyroid. It doesn't always happen, but if you're looking at root causes, um, getting somebody on thyroid medication can often help somebody's depression more than anything else because the depression is caused by the cells in your brain not having that ignition switch and it turning on. Some people feel a lot of slowdown in their gut. They'll have constipation or they'll have gut complaints. Basically, if you just think of, what could slow down or not work well in your body, that could be a symptom of Hashimoto's. And for me, it was incredible fatigue, which is one of the common ones. So, ReShonda, you asked about kids, and I have no idea when I developed my Hashimoto's. It can, it can take from the time you get your antibodies up until you have symptoms, it could be 10 to 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
It could be shorter. So I don't know when I got it, but I know that in homeschooling, you know, as the ideal mom, you're reading books, you have your kids on your lap, you're reading, you're creating these memories. My memories are like slurring my words and falling asleep while I was reading the books to my kids. I felt like a horrible mom. And so I learned early on that, I'm going to have to go take a nap. It's going to be nap time for everybody. I probably had hypothyroid when my younger kids were little. Now they're 11 to 17. And then later, as they grew, I would set them up with independent work. I'm like, I'm going to go crash on the bed for 20, 30 minutes. And it was every day before I got my diagnosis. And that was one of the things where I'm like, why do I need a nap? I'm in my 30s. Why do I need a nap every single day? Like, I'm not the early morning lark, whatever they call it. I'm not the night owl. I am the chronically exhausted pigeon, and this should not be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If, just so relating to that homeschooling thing, and as a mom and a woman, I don't know, just thinking that, also wondering, like, was it like, oh, I shouldn't, like you said, I shouldn't be feeling this way. What's wrong with me? And also, I'm this is a normal thing because I have 4 boys. I'm homeschooling. So kind of the both of the things. So just kind of checking it off to, oh, I'm a busy mom. Yeah, I'm 30. I shouldn't be, a little guilt there, whatever. But I'm also, this is probably normal. This is just normal thing. And I'm not asking and nobody's saying anything about it.
Right. Yes. One of my podcast episodes is based around it might be common, but it's not normal because you're right. Like you're told it's common to be a tired mom. I mean, how many hashtags are there on Instagram? Tired mom. But it might be common, but it's not normal. It's not how God created us to be. We shouldn't be that tired.
Yeah.
So, Esther, I know with some autoimmune conditions, there's certain things that may trigger them. So there may be something that's kind of lying dormant. But with Hashimoto's, have you found that there's maybe a thing or two or three that's kind of common as triggering factors to actually turn that on for people?
Yes, for sure. So all autoimmune conditions have three things in common, and it's a genetic component, a gut
Mhm.
component, and one or more triggers. And then for Hashimoto's, I have a mini course that goes through the 8 most common triggers so that people can identify, okay, that makes sense for my history. Yep, definitely have that. Oh, don't have to worry about that one. And I try to make it so we don't have to go through expensive testing. If you go to
Mhm.
your doctor or a functional medicine doctor, they might want to do testing, which I am not opposed to. I'm also not made of money. And so I wanted to be able to look at a list and say, these are probably the common things for me. One for all autoimmune conditions is stress. It's a very common trigger. The more stress we're under, the less our body works well, which I know you guys have talked about. And so, yeah, gut component and stress. I talk a lot about both of those on the podcast.
I have, since I was little, psoriasis, autoimmune, right? So that's why I was asking. I wondered if I'd heard that when you have one kind of autoimmune disorder, you can be predisposed to others. Is that incorrect?
No, that's absolutely correct because it's an immune system problem.
Yeah.
So if your immune system is going after one thing, like that might be the low hanging fruit. And then after a while, it's going to go after another thing and another. Unfortunately, people who have one autoimmune disease usually develop more.
Mhm. And so, hate to skip ahead, but because I have a question about women too. But I would guess agree that if you do have any kind of autoimmune, that it would be very important for you to understand it, number one, and what are those 8 common triggers, not just of Hashimoto's, but any autoimmune.
Mhm.
And then be preventative because it doesn't have to happen if you're managing the one that you do have or whatever. um, is that true to say that if you're managing that well, then you have a better chance at not getting something else? Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Because you're focusing on the root cause of what's affecting the immune system
Yeah.
and calming it down so
Yeah.
that it can't or is not as likely to, go after something else. Nobody wants one, much less four.
Well, no, they don't.
Right.
That's been absolutely true about stress with my psoriasis, is that's always the trigger. That is always the trigger, any kind of stress. So I had a question around women for Hashimoto's. Tell me if I'm saying it wrong too. It's Hashimoto, right? Or
Yeah.
there's an S on the end of it, or
Yeah.
Hash-
Apostrophe S. It is
Can I
owned.
that's
back
what I thought. That's what I thought. But okay.
can
So
I back up with a question just so
yeah.
it kind of so you talked about stress and gut health. We talk a lot about stress, but the gut health piece of it, like we understand, I think, okay, we need to do like and maybe meditation and nature and just letting things go for stress. But the gut health that you just mentioned, how do we know that we have a gut health issue, or how do we deal with that piece of it?
We can just assume that you have a gut health issue. I mean, if we live in the US, we probably have one. um, but if you have an autoimmune problem, like that's one of the core elements. If you're not pooping once a day, you have a gut problem. And it always just baffles me, especially in the ER when I would ask people when their last bowel movement was. I'm like, 5 days ago, but that's normal for me. I'm like, that is not okay. Like you have a septic system building up inside your body. You should be evacuating your bowels at least once a day. Technically, you should poop 24 hours after you eat. So if you eat 3 times a day, you should be pooping 3 times a day. Most people in the US don't. So, number one, are your bowel movements regular? As in, do you have them at least once a day? And you can look up the Bristol stool scale. And are you in the middle? So is your stool soft, easy to pass? When it's in the toilet, it's like C-shaped or S-shaped because it just is soft. Like that's what we want. We don't want super hard bowel movements. We don't want rabbit turds. We don't want liquid. And then to take care of our guts, we obviously we want to focus on eating real foods and eating prebiotics and probiotics. So prebiotics, fruits and vegetables have a lot of prebiotics in it. Prebiotics are the foods that the probiotics eat. And then the probiotics are the healthy bacteria in our gut. So good gut health is a good diet plus probiotics plus prebiotics. And that's a really deep topic. We could do like 5 episodes on that.
We should. It's one of our favorite things to talk about. It's really, really good. You do such a good job of explaining all of it. Poop is important. What's the skit from the doctor one? Do you guys remember the Scrubs? Do you guys remember that? Have you seen it? Super funny skit. We'll have to link it here. Super funny skit that talks about it, always comes back to the poo. And there's a whole song about it and a bunch of skits. Hilarious. So thank you for talking about the poo, Esther. So then my question I had was about women. Is there any relationship between women having experiencing Hashimoto's versus or over men, or no?
Yes. For all autoimmune diseases, women are affected more than men. And I want to say it's like 80%, but I can't remember for sure. But it's hugely weighted towards women. And and I feel kind of bad for the guys who have Hashimoto's because I generally talk about females and I'll use, she and her pronouns because that's usually who has it. But I have a couple guys in my community, and when they first want to join, I'm like, why are you joining?
Yeah.
but they have Hashimoto's. Like guys can have it. It's just not as common. Unfortunately, autoimmune diseases in general are on the rise all around the world, especially in the US. And one thing that is a common trigger for Hashimoto's is fluoride and chlorine. Um, I can get really geeky and go into the periodic table of elements. It has to do with which column they're in, but we have a lot of exposure to both fluoride and chlorine, and those impact our thyroid and our iodine. So we are at greater risk for Hashimoto's.
Yeah. Yeah, those are some of my old things coming back from like Sanaviv, talking about fluoride, and people thought it was so weird to be talking about, hey, maybe we need to be looking at toothpaste that doesn't have fluoride and all the things. And people still get weirded out if we talk about that, but every little thing counts, right?
Yeah, yeah. I told one of my friends, she's like, what do I do? I'm like, you want to do something super easy? Go switch out your toothpaste. Go get one with hydroxyapatite instead of fluoride. She's like, what? That's easy? I mean, that's it. And I was like, sure, just stop at the store on your way home. Just one simple swap. Is it going to like change your life? No. But is it going to help? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. What is the relationship? Is there a why for women experiencing, you said 80% more?
Some of it has to do with estrogen. I mean, probably most of it, and our livers, because we're exposed to so many estrogen mimics in our environment, and because our livers are already dealing with so much stuff that they have to process, the estrogen comes into our liver, and our liver ideally will take it out and process it, but it's busy. And so the liver is like, yeah, go around again. I'll get you on the next time. And then the estrogen comes back again. You're like, yeah, no, I'm still busy. Go around again. And so you have this estrogen dominance or estrogen buildup in the body. And that is one of the things that causes or increases autoimmune problems.
That's so fascinating.
Yes. Are there ways that you found to help the liver clear that estrogen for women? Because you do hear so many women being estrogen dominant. Even if you are like in perimenopause and you are very low on all the things, your estrogen usually is still higher than your progesterone. And so even though they're both low, you're still dominant. So any things that you found that people can do?
Yeah, about, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, I heard Dr. Libby Weaver, she's a biochemist, and she said, if you want to change your health with one thing, double your vegetable intake.
Mhm.
And she talks a lot about liver health. And she's actually the one who explained that estrogen dominance and it coming back around. But increasing your vegetable intake, doubling it, that's the best thing you can do for your liver, especially leafy greens. And I will say, I just interviewed an author on my podcast. Her name is Sally K. Norton, and she was talking about oxalates, which I had only heard about for kidneys, but it actually is really, really important for thyroid. So I say increase your dark leafy greens, but I'm going to add a caveat. Do not increase spinach. In fact, try to take spinach out of your diet because it can cause thyroid problems.
Hmm.
So increase your veggies, but not spinach.
So question on that, great question, ReShonda. Follow up to that question, what about doing greens, powdered greens, like organic powdered greens? I know, menopausal woman trying to get all the new proteins. And I mean, I felt like I ate healthy before, and now it's like so many of us just trying to figure it out. And we just talked about this, the routine that we have, getting that, the plan and the routine and getting it all in. And, for me, I do use an organic green just to be sure that because dude, I'd be eating all day. That's how it feels, right? Wouldn't we just be eating all day long? So what are your thoughts about organic greens as in addition to increasing your leafy greens?
I cut back on all of them on the powders because I don't know the oxalate content. And after reading Sally's book, which is Toxic Superfoods, I have been focusing on cutting the oxalates out of my diet because I know that it's a huge trigger for my Hashimoto's. So before I add in another green, because there's a lot of powders on the market and they're so helpful, right? Because, we're so busy. But before I add one back in, I will be contacting the company and saying, do you have it? Has it been tested for oxalates? And if not, then I'm going to pass just because I don't feel like the benefits outweigh the risk of the oxalate, knowing my triggers and knowing that I have, 10, 20 years of intake that's way too high in oxalates for what my body can handle.
So, Esther, I am so impressed that you talked with Dr. Sally K. Norton. She is one of my favorites to listen to. And the conversations that she has around oxalates and, I mean, whether it be the spinach or the almonds, certain beans, different things that are very high in oxalates. Super impressed that you talked to her. Like, yeah. But can you explain to people what oxalates are if they don't know?
Yeah, it's kind of like the spikes on a cactus, except on a microscopic level. And they are things that the plant produces to protect itself. Unfortunately, they don't do any good in our body. So, like you said, spinach and almonds, chia seeds, sweet potatoes, all of those are really high in oxalates. So as you eat them, they're almost, I think she says, as hard as a diamond. Like they are so, so hard. So you can have problems in your mouth. You can have a lot of irritation and inflammation in your gut as they pass through. And then they they combine with different minerals in your body to create an acid. And then that acid creates crystals in organs in your body. So you can have a buildup and have little tiny like kidney stones, except obviously not kidney stones in your thyroid, or actual kidney stones. Those are oxalates. And then your body is like, oh my goodness, look at this sharp, nasty thing. Let's get it out. And so that increases inflammation. And then, what about thyroid? Why is my immune system attacking my thyroid? Maybe it's because I have these sharp little crystals causing damage, and my immune system is like, let's take care of that. And so, yes, my immune system is haywire and attacking myself, but maybe it has a reason. Maybe it's all of the oxalates. So, there's so many layers to all of this.
Wow. That was awesome. Kyle, another great question. Uh, So oxalates, thank you for that explanation. Do oxalates, are they specifically things we don't want for Hashimoto's, or are they doing a job for all the autoimmunes?
They're doing a job on everybody,
Mhm.
autoimmune or not. They're
Okay.
causing inflammation and problems. But
Okay.
they're in a lot of those superfoods,
Right.
and we don't hear about it.
Well, we're hearing a lot about it now, the superfoods that aren't great, right?
Mhm.
So could you give us a list of, so if I know somebody's going, well, what is okay? What superfoods are okay to eat? Give us a short list of what we can buy at the grocery store with ease in the organic section.
I downloaded a list, I think from Harvard, and I was super nerdy. I put it in a spreadsheet for myself and I divided that spreadsheet out into categories. So let me tell you, in the nuts and seeds group, a lot of nuts and seeds, which I have been taught are all superfoods. And
Mm,
that is what I based all my snacks on. It is how I get my protein throughout the day. And most nuts and seeds are high. So on the okay part, coconuts and flaxseed and sunflower seeds are all like low and medium. So that's what I have been incorporating in my diet. I tell you, I have been a peanut butter and jelly girl since I was, probably 3 years old. Peanut butter and jelly every single day. I love it. In the last 10, 15 years, I have been actually in the last 11 years, because my youngest is 11, I have been making my own peanut butter and I add almonds to it because, I hear they're healthy.
mhm.
Almonds are the highest.
Wow.
Almonds and spinach are the very highest. So I'm totally changing my diet. All, or I think almost all dairy and animal products are fine.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
I
they're
have been
fine. I thought you were
switched.
going to say they're not fine. I was
No,
like,
no,
oh,
they're fine.
no, I have to change again.
No, they're fine. So
Okay.
eggs, cheese, yogurt, I've been switching to that for my quick to go snacks.
Great.
And when we look at vegetables, I'm just going to tell you the high ones:
The high,
spinach,
the high ones that are high in. Okay. Okay. That's
high in. So these are bad for you as far as oxalates.
mhm.
Spinach, potatoes, both white and sweet potatoes, beets, soybeans are high. So that would include, all of the plant-based
Yeah.
stuff.
Mhm.
And then tomatoes, like an actual tomato is not super high, but then when you concentrate it in like a marinara sauce or a chili or a pizza sauce,
Yeah.
then that oxalate stuff is going to increase. But thankfully, just regular lettuce and kale, even, they're okay. So
Good.
I have a little hydroponic garden. I just switched it out and I'm growing little lettuce heads, whatever you call those. And it's easy for my brain. I'm like, okay, lettuce, good, spinach, bad.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to give
Sure.
up on.
Pretty sure I'm gonna have to give up ReShonda as my best friend because now you guys are gonna be best friends. Whatever. You're welcome.
And it's so funny that like you've got that list. I am always watching podcasts. I was geeking out on one this morning and I was just thinking through like all the list of things that they had in the circle that were high oxalates that, you probably should be watching out for, then the nuts and different things. Like I think that, well, he had like 5 different ones that were like, okay, but the only ones that he really said were okay were the macadamia nuts and pili nuts were the 2 that he said those are pretty safe. There were like pecans and Brazil nuts. He said, if you have to have something different, but and walnuts. He said, but other than those 5, they're off the list. The only 2 he really would recommend were macadamia nuts and pili nuts.
Macadamia. So I'm gonna add that to Esther's list of coconuts, sunflower seeds. So we can add macadamia nuts, which by the way, I wish they weren't $1 billion.
Oh my God, right?
Okay.
I'm adding it to my
Macadamia,
list right now because
yeah,
it was not on my list.
and
Yeah,
walnuts, right?
macadamia nuts and pili nuts were the 2 that he said those are okay. But
I've
if
never heard of that. Can you spell that nut? I've never heard of that.
yeah, pili,
Pili nut.
pili nuts.
Never heard of that. Have you eaten them before?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And are they
yeah,
good?
you can find them. Yeah, they're fine.
Uh-huh. Okay. So interesting. Okay. So now we have this little list of what it's easier to say what what did you say? It's easier to say well, we have both lists, but I know I can eat dairy. Dairy's okay, no oxalates and meat products, awesome. Coconut, sunflower seeds, macadamia nuts, and pila nuts, all good. And lettuce and kale is still good.
And I think you also said
Pretty important.
flax in there, right?
Did you say flax?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So anyway, we're not saying everybody's got to do whatever, but this is so it's always like that. I feel like there's resistance, like I was experiencing before, just kind of feeling like crazy, like, what do I got to do next? Because it always feels like we're learning. But you know what? If I can step back away from the resistance and to know what do we already know, that the only thing that's constant is change. So what we should be learning more, just like Esther, you were peanut butter and jelly girl, and now you're not. And so bummer. But there's, we can make those small changes and make a huge difference. And that is a really great list. Menopause, do you want to say anything about, if nothing comes to you that you want to share about menopause, Hashimoto's, everything that you said applies to what we're experiencing with gut issues, all the stuff that we're dealing with. So this is super helpful, autoimmune or no autoimmune, to those of us that are going through menopause at any stage. Really, really good. Anything that's coming to you about that?
Yeah. The three most common times when people develop Hashimoto's is the three P's: puberty, pregnancy, and perimenopause. It's
Really?
those times of our big hormone shifts. So, yes, you talk about menopause, and it's so common that women are now diagnosed. And unfortunately, it takes a long time to get diagnosed. On average, women, they are seeking that diagnosis, they're seeking answers for their problems for about 4 years. And they go through multiple diagnoses and they see an average of 4 different providers before they finally get the correct diagnosis.
Yep, that sounds right. So women, ladies, this is such important information, Esther, to know. And if you could tell me one more time, because the next question I want to kind of talk to you about, and ReShonda and I have talked about, is we want to talk about your podcasting. We want to talk about your family, how Hashimoto's has affected your family. And I guess this is a good segue question, is repeat one more time the list of symptoms that could be Hashimoto, so that we're really clear on, yes, we want you as women, if you're in puberty, if your child's in puberty or pregnancy or heading towards menopause, be sure that you don't write these off as, I'm just a woman, I'm just busy. Like the world is already writing you off. Don't write yourself off. Ooh, that I felt a little emotional about that. So give us the list, if you would, of
Yeah.
what symptoms.
Yeah, fatigue. It's not normal to be so tired. If you are always fatigued, get checked. Hair loss, feeling cold, you're feeling like your metabolism is slowing down, which again, people say, oh, that's normal for menopause. It doesn't have to be. Um, Losing your hair, especially if you look in the mirror and the outer 1/3 of your eyebrows is thinning, get checked for your thyroid. And when I say get checked for your thyroid, I don't mean go ask for your TSH. Your doctor is going to automatically say, oh, you want your thyroid checked? Let's do a TSH. I want you to get your TSH, sure, but also get your thyroid antibodies checked. Those can be elevated 10 to 15 years before you develop symptoms. And also find out your T4, your T3, and your reverse T3. Those are important. And basically, your T4 is how well your thyroid is working. Your T3 is how well the rest of your body is converting it. And your reverse T3 is an indication of your body putting the brakes on and saying, no, we are not going to give more keys for energy. We actually need the brakes. We need to slow down. We need to rest, because when we're resting, that's when we're healing. And so that's why I want those specific labs.
So good. And you said something about depression.
Yes, if you have depression, if you are on an antidepressant, or if you just feel like your mood is low, your affect is low, you're unable to engage like you normally are, get checked for your thyroid.
Right. So good. On that note, what do you think about supplementing for hypothyroid or hyperthyroid, like a supplement?
That's It's a good question. One of my highest, like frequently asked questions. Number one, I look at levothyroxine or Synthroid as a supplement. It's a medication, but the action it's supplementing what your thyroid is not producing. So some people are like, I'm going to get off all Western medications. I'm not going to take anything from the pharmacy. You need thyroid hormone. And so if your thyroid is not producing enough, it doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make you broken to have that. If your thyroid is not working well, supplement as the doctor says. So, like, take that prescription. Don't try to take yourself off of it. It doesn't make you a superhuman to take yourself off of it. It means that you are supplementing what your thyroid is not giving you. And then, as far as other remedies, I do have quite a few. Number one, you just need to give your body all it needs. It needs the ingredients. I'm a big fan of a multivitamin or a multi-nutrient, and there's a lot on the market. You you don't want one with a lot of iodine in it. And iodine is a huge topic in the thyroid world. There's very, very, very well researched people who are pro iodine and very, very well researched people who are anti iodine. So as far as Hashimoto's, you kind of have to figure out what works for you. But a low amount, like 50 micrograms or milligrams a day, which is normally what's in a multivitamin, it's going to be enough. So I start there. I also really believe that everybody would benefit from activating a pathway in the body. It is the NRF2 pathway, and it's the pathway that your body uses to create antioxidants like glutathione, superoxide dismutase, which is really big. But basically, those two antioxidants that your body makes help clean things out. And if your triggers are things like environmental toxins and exposure to things like Epstein-Barr virus, you want to make sure that you have enough antioxidants in your body. You want to make sure that your glutathione levels are up. So I recommend an activator, a supplement called Protandim. And that is, as far as I have seen on the market, it's the only one that is proven by multiple different studies to activate that NRF2 pathway. That's where I would start with everybody.
That just makes all the other things you're doing work better, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. So good.
I'm so glad that you touched on the iodine piece of things, because like I said, there are experts that are like, yes, you need to be supplementing with iodine. There are others that are like, you need to be careful with that. So it's so hard to know like what it is that you should be or need to be doing. But sometimes it is just a matter of like figuring out what works for me. Because I know I've tried the iodine supplement and it's like, oh yeah, that does not feel good for me. But for the next person, it works great. So yeah, so I'm glad you just kind of did that so that people aren't like running out to get this or completely stopping it. It's really about how their body feels with
Yes.
Yeah.
So good. Shauna, do you have the next question, or do you want me to go on to what I was thinking?
Well, go on. I do have more questions, but go on with yours.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, I was going to ask about the podcast and the family. So you pick one of those. You.
Me?
Answer. Yeah.
Okay.
Whichever one you want to talk about now.
Well, I think let's talk about family, because I know you guys do a lot about relationships. I know that when my thyroid is not doing well, like I am just, it's all I can do to get through a day. And so like everything else kind of like goes down. If it's not an immediate priority, it's not going to happen. And so that affects homeschooling, it affects chores, it affects everything. And yes, I can get through the day, but it's harder. And that's, you have guilt and shame as a mom. Like my house right now is not clean, not at all.
To see mine right before this podcast, I'm like shoving everything off to the side. So I feel you, lady. Thank you for sharing.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. But I think, knowing what's going on and then being able to take action. Like at the beginning of this year, I was like, I'm just not myself. And so I got my labs figured out that, I do need some Synthroid, and it helped. and I don't need to carry shame about that.
Mhm.
And then, my husband, because I love to research so much and I'm always looking through a root cause lens, like those are the glasses that I wear. Everything I'm looking at it, does this apply to my root causes? And so I'll, try something new. And he's like, is that going to work? Why are we doing that? Like when I interviewed Sally or when I read her book, and my husband, he does most of our grocery shopping. He just likes shopping. I hate it. So it works out. But he's like, what do I even buy? Is this even worth it? Is this going to be a fad? I'm like, no, no. It's, you know, I've done the research. It is going to help me. It's just something else that we get to incorporate as a family. And that can be hard, especially for a spouse, because they're kind of going along the ride with you and they see you suffering. They want to fix it. And at the same time, as somebody with an autoimmune problem, I feel like we are always trying something else. And so then that spouse is like, I see you trying things. Is this worth your hope?
Yeah. Esther,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. That is
Mhm.
very, very, very relatable. Very relatable. And
Mhm.
you gave me actually, because that's been taught in my experience too, just I think just that having autoimmune, but also just sensitivities to other things, we talked about in our last episode about insulin sensitivities that I have. And, my family would probably laugh, they make jokes about it lovingly about, the different things they would maybe consider fads, but they respect it now, but totally relatable. And you gave me a new way to kind of look at that. I guess just seeing it through your experience, that just helps me feel a little bit more normal. And I guess it kind of connects with what I said earlier about not being in resistance to the change, that this is just what it is. New science, thank God, is always happening. So it's always worth it as long as you know that it's a quality thing and you've done your research, like you said. And the other thing is money, right? Like these things cost money and that affects the relationship, at least in my experience, just kind of weighing out, what do you try? What don't you try? Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing.
And that's one reason why I really want women and men to know their root causes.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you know, like some friend on Facebook says, you have to try this, it's going to work for you. But if you know it's not addressing one of your root causes, then you can say no. Or if you know, like they're saying, oh my goodness, I just learned about this, and you know it's going to impact one of your biggest root causes, then it's worth pursuing. It
Yeah.
really, just knowing your root causes really helps filter out what could be helpful and what's not worth pursuing. And I said it's not worth your hope because I feel like with every new thing, we get our hopes up
Yeah.
that it's going to work. And so, even more than wasting somebody's time and wasting somebody's money, I don't want to waste somebody's hope.
Mm,
Mm.
it's really good. It's
Yeah.
really good. This whole thyroid thing is so important. I'm so glad you're doing your podcast. I'm so pumped to be able to
Mhm.
share it. I've already learned so much. And
Yeah.
it's the thyroid thing, even just thinking about ReShonda and I talked about this too not too long ago, how I lately, and I actually, okay, so I forgot to mention this, that I just found out through my functional medicine and some hormonal testing that I did, that my thyroid, I have hypothyroid. Just like if I would go to my regular GP, it would have been normal, but my functional medicine doc, she's like, I'd like to see that little bit different. So I am taking a supplement for Synthroid. So that's really good. And I'm
Mm.
watching that and paying attention, but it's really helpful to me because I never thought of it. I never thought of my thyroid, maybe why I am experiencing weird, like, oh, I just feel not myself. I just feel like no energy and kind of also like I don't care, you know? And it sucks. It sucks really, really bad. And, just go, this isn't me. And so it's what I've been praying about. Like, Lord, why am I
Mhm.
like feeling like this? I have so much to be grateful for. So this is really, really helpful for us to remember, hey, it could be this. So it's worth asking. I now know that I'm on that journey to sort of fixing that thing, right? As I'm working through menopause also. Um, what about the podcast? This is a perfect time, if unless you have some more. We would have so many. I know
I
Rashawn is
know.
writing down all of her questions. Anything you want to talk about right now before we move towards her podcast?
No, let's go ahead with your podcast.
Okay.
People
I
should
want to
know
know how it started. Quinn, you told us a little bit how it's going, what's been your, overall experience, and what do you want to share? We will be sharing that in the notes for sure, the link to your podcast.
Yeah, it is the Health with Hashimoto's podcast. And like I said, when I got my diagnosis, I was like this cannot be. And then God's like, okay, share it with other people. It also happens like God worked everything out. While all of this was happening, probably in the previous month, I was talking back and forth with a friend on Instagram, and I usually leave voice notes because, they're just more relatable. And she would tell me, you need to start narrating audiobooks or start a podcast. And she was telling me this like frequently for the month before I got my diagnosis. And so when I got that and I heard God say, share this information, I was like, oh, well, there's my podcast. It was just like, it just fell into place. And I was trying to figure out a name and we want health. I don't want to focus on illness. We want health, but we have Hashimoto's. So Health with Hashimoto's, there's my podcast name, and it wasn't taken. And it just like things fell into place. One of my friends invited me to do a podcast boot camp, which was all about launching your podcast again at the same time when all of this was happening. And so poof, there was my podcast, Health with Hashimoto's. I started it, I don't know. It was, 3 summers ago, this coming summer. And it's been going well. I have had a weekly podcast, a couple bonus episodes. On a Saturday, I'll do a book review or something. But I'm on episode 138, will be coming out this week. So
Wow.
it's a lot.
That's awesome.
And next month, I should hit 100,000 downloads for my podcast overall, which is a huge number. It kind of blows me away to think that people have put their headphones on and listened to me 100,000 times. That just, it
Amazing.
blows me away.
Wow. Esther, right?
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Congratulations on that.
Think of the ripple effect of that. You just saying yes and having the courage and being able to be vulnerable and doing your thing, having no idea. I remember talking to you. You know what? Another thing is so cool about Esther. This is what I see. You are very, very patient. Like, it was, like I said, it was overwhelming to me, the idea of doing a podcast. When you started doing your podcast, I knew it was ReShonda and I had already been talking about it, but we were nowhere near it. But you're so good at just researching and taking it one day at a time. I don't know if it felt like that inside, but I'm just so inspired and proud of you as woman to woman. Girl, it's
Thank you.
so good. And you're so beautiful. You just are very shiny from the inside out. And it's so great. So great. Gosh, the people that you have helped.
That is the most rewarding spot.
Yes.
Like getting messages like, oh my goodness, I just found your podcast. Or one woman is like, I've been stressing a lot. And my husband said, here, listen to Esther because she is chill. And I can't remember her exact words, but like hearing those messages of, I just binged your podcast and you're changing my life. It is just so rewarding because this is not from me. This is a gift from God saying, surprise, Esther, you have Hashimoto's. Now go help others. And so through my journey and my pain and my confusion, I have been able to help others and help them change their life. And that is so rewarding.
Amazing.
That's relationship.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate relationship in service of others. And thank you.
And I have to tell you, with that relationship, it's so funny when you get a message from somebody who's just binged your podcast, because I am their best friend. And to me, I have never heard of them. And it just makes me laugh every time because they know me so well. And they're like, oh my goodness, you said this and you said this, and I love this. And I'm like, it's just, I don't know. It's just so weird because I'm sharing my life and I'm happy to share it. And then all of a sudden they get to know me so well and build that relationship. And I don't know. It's just funny.
Yeah, it is, right? It's a weird thing. And we're just a little bit knowing that now, but worth it. I mean, I'm sure I can see your kids or your husband in the background. And I bet your kids, I hope your kids are so proud of you. If they're not, they will be someday.
It'll be
I mean,
someday.
mine don't tell me they are yet, but I'm still holding it out. No, they do. They're great. Okay, we are going to put the link to the podcast and any of these little bits. They can find you through the podcast. Is that the best way? The podcast link there?
Yeah. Yep. Health with Hashimoto's. I am on Instagram, but I don't check my messages all the time. So
your
through the podcast.
Your podcast can be found where?
On all available podcast platforms. It is Health with Hashimoto's.
Very fancy, Health with Hashimoto's. And this is Esther Yunkin, who is an amazing woman, amazing human being. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very much. So now we're going to close, and this is how we do this now. Okay. I'm going to say, I'm Angie Gray. Shonda's going to say, I'm ReShonda Young. And you're going to say, I'm Esther Yunkin. We've never done this. And then we're going to say, and we are sister friends. Okay. Okay. Thank you for being with us, Esther. We love you. Oh my gosh, you're going to change so many lives with this. We're so honored that you're on. You are remarkable. Thank you. I'm Angie Gray.
And I'm ReShonda Young.
And I'm Esther Yunkin.
And we are Sister Friends.
Thanks for tuning into Sister Friends. We hope these conversations help you see things from a new angle, feel a little more connected, and maybe even laugh along the way.
Remember, whether it's family, work, or those elephants in the room we all deal with, everything really is about relationships.
If you enjoyed this episode, let us know. Share your thoughts, share this podcast with a friend, and let's keep building those connections.
Until next time, stay connected, stay curious, and let's keep growing together.